Following the surprise release of Ilya Dragunov, it was reported that more WWE departures could be on their way. According to Brian Alvarez of the Wrestling Observer, in the month of October 2026, names that aren't active on WWE television are set to have their contracts expire. Now granted, this doesn't automatically mean that these names are gonna be released. However, a new contract for less money, as reportedly the New Day were offered a 50% pay cut for legends of their status, we could face a similar situation as we saw with Dragunov, New Day, and Sheamus, all names that ultimately decided to leave the company behind. Join us now as Wrestlelamia looks at 11 wrestlers who are about to leave in 2026. Be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell for daily wrestling videos and follow us on our new Facebook page. Number 11. Rusev. Rusev could potentially leave WWE this year if his second run with the company fails to deliver the opportunities he expected when he returned. After spending several years in AEW as Miro, Rusev made his comeback in 2025 with the hopes of wrestling regularly and competing against some of the company's biggest stars, and so far that really hasn't happened. Although Rusev has remained involved on Raw during 2026, he's not been consistently presented as one of WWE's main event stars as he probably thought he would be. He's also previously shown that he's willing to leave a promotion when he feels his career is not progressing. His final years in AEW featured long periods away from television, and he eventually left the company before returning to WWE. Now, leaving in 2026 would be a huge surprise. Rusev explained earlier this year that he returned because he missed WWE's demanding schedule and wanted to wrestle more frequently against top-level competition. In 2026, he hasn't had many matches, nor has he been presented as this huge unstoppable monster that has returned to WWE, as he only lasted minutes in the Royal Rumble this year. He might decide that the second run may not be worth it. Number 10. Candice LeRae. Now, at one point in time, Candice LeRae was considered to be one of the greatest women's wrestlers on the planet. It's hard to state whether this is still the case, as LeRae barely wrestles in WWE anymore, and in 2026 alone, it's a shocking fact that she's only had one match on the main roster, and it lasted a matter of minutes. How could we be in August and you only have one match on the main roster? Why is WWE paying a substantial amount of money to have LeRae under contract if they aren't even using her? Some may argue that this is an easy payday for LeRae, yet when you're exclusively marketed on your pro wrestling ability, it's likely that LeRae wants more and actually wants to wrestle while she's in her peak. LeRae is an interesting name as every time she does anything on TV, she delivers, no matter how limited the role is. Names like this are gold dust in 2026. It's even more frustrating that fans continue to moan about the same names being pushed over and over again in the women's division and how unbelievably stale the women's division is, yet they have LeRae doing absolutely nothing. Right now, it really wouldn't come as a shock to see LeRae leave WWE behind, and we may end up in a situation where both her and her husband are AEW bound sooner rather than later. As number 9, Johnny Gargano. Johnny Gargano has been resting on a crate backstage on SmackDown for what feels like a lifetime. Why this storyline is happening? We actually have no idea why. Gargano hasn't wrestled in months, and there appears to be no signs that he could wake up from this weird state anytime soon. The issue with this is that Gargano's entire gimmick is that he's Johnny Wrestling, so to position a character like this in a role that requires him to lie on a crate makes zero sense. It looked like WWE were slowly teasing an angle with Gargano and Sami Zayn, yet this has gone absolutely nowhere, and we could be looking at a terrible situation where Gargano's WWE deal expires while he's resting on a crate backstage. Not gonna lie, this type of booking feels straight out of the Vince McMahon era, and it's just a major surprise that for a name that Triple H adored in NXT, he's been presented in such a lackluster manner on the main roster. Number 8. Ricky Saints. Ricky Saints hasn't been seen on WWE programming since he took the worst people's elbow of all time from a rapper. On paper, Saints should be the perfect fit for the main roster. He's charismatic, he can wrestle, and he has connections in high places, as he's best friends with Cody Rhodes. Yet WWE clearly always saw him as a mid-card talent on the main roster, and now they can't even commit to booking him on television. Saints is still working the WWE live event circuit, of course in losing efforts, so there's still hope that he'll return to TV in the fall. Even his segments, though, are being cut from WWE television as they've been shown on WWE digital exclusives. It just means that the company doesn't want to prioritize his segments over others. Now, hopefully, Saints isn't one of the names whose contract is set to expire in October, as Saints could truly be a main event player for the company. Number 7. the War Raiders. It feels like every 2 to 3 years, WWE delivers a huge push for the War Raiders, then it just fizzles out. The duo are incredibly talented, yet you could easily argue that Ivar's singles run on the main roster was better than anything they've come as a duo on Raw or SmackDown. One problem is that the crowd just struggles to connect with them, which is a massive shame as both are incredibly talented, and it's hard to work out why that disconnect is so prevalent whenever they wrestle. The duo are also working in AAA, which may prevent WWE from cutting ties with them. If they're going to continue to work as contractual talents on the main roster, then a serious overhaul is needed, as something just isn't working and the talented duo need a spark to capture the imagination of fans. Number 6. Angelo Dawkins. Well, the Street Profits have had countless stop-and-start pushes over the years, and it's somewhat of a miracle that the two have remained insanely over with the crowd. At one point in time during their run on SmackDown, it was impossible to determine whether they were faces or heels, and even the SmackDown Hotel, the internet database for heels and babyface turns, had a really tough task determining what was actually happening. Despite this bizarre presentation, the crowd wanted to root for them, and for very good reason. The two are incredibly charismatic and have nothing but good matches, yet on their recent run on Raw, it became clear that WWE see Montez Ford as the star of the group. Ford entered into a brief alliance with Seth Rollins whilst Angelo Dawkins was written off TV, and this was notable, as fans have been pushing the idea of Ford being a single star for years, and it looked to be finally happening. Ford is currently on leave following the birth of his son, but it'll be interesting to see what WWE does with Ford and Dawkins upon their return to television. Little to no information is currently known about their contracts, yet it would be a shock if Ford was ever released, and if WWE is going to cut one of the names of the group, then it would likely be Angelo Dawkins. Sorry, Dawkins. Now, hopefully this doesn't occur in any capacity, yet in the era of TKO making cuts left, right, and center, it's just something that we can't rule out at this stage. Number 5. Giulia. When Giulia debuted in NXT, she was presented as a total attraction, and fans had hoped that this strong presentation would continue in an NXT run. Unfortunately, this hasn't been the case at all. Despite having 2 distinct runs as Women's US Champion, neither of these reigns lit the world on fire, and it was apparent quite early on that WWE had no idea what to do with her during a reign. Her booking and presentation went completely off the rails when she turned babyface, as although now she was in a natural state as she was known for being an incredible babyface act before WWE, she was barely being featured. The former US champion now finds herself losing on WWE main event to names such as Michin, and her stocks have never been lower in the company. Giulia is another name that prides herself on ability to deliver in big-time matches, and if she isn't being given that opportunity at any level, we can surely expect her to walk away if her contract comes up. Number 4. Tyler Bate. Tyler Bate has almost been in WWE for a decade, and outside of his run in NXT UK and his match with Gunther, it's really hard to pinpoint what Bate has been doing for the past decade. He was once labeled as one of the best workers in the entire world, and this wasn't exactly hyperbolic. Bate was incredible in the ring, and Triple H was clearly a big fan based on how he was presented in NXT. As things stand, Bate has been on the main roster for almost 3 years, and he's achieved absolutely nothing. Currently finds himself in a mask alongside Pete Dunne, and it's hard to know if this character is even still a concept now that El Grande Americano is exclusively a AAA talent. But the crazy thing about Bate is that he's still one of the youngest names on the active roster, and it'd be a massive disservice if Bate is let go or he opts to leave without the company giving him a fair shot at success. Number 3. Pete Dunne. There was once a point in time where it looked like Pete Dunne was going to be the top heel in WWE. Dunne had an insane presence as a heel, and the best thing was, his in-ring work was unique and he had firmly managed to connect with the crowd. The issue with Dunne is that he's never been given a fair opportunity on the main roster. When he was presented in a stable alongside Sheamus, he was named Butch, which some fans saw as a career killer. And it's really hard to disagree, as Dunne has found it hard to come back from this atrocious name change. Now, he is still one of Triple H's guys, albeit in a new role, and he acts as a producer for a number of big matches. It looks like the game is more interested in having Dunne in this role, rather than an in-ring talent. It's entirely possible that if Dunne's contract is coming up, WWE or TKO looks at the numbers and decides to offer Dunne a producer-only contract. This would be a massive shame, as Dunne is only 32 years old and he still has so much to offer. Number 2. Matt Cardona. Would WWE really release someone whilst they're injured? Well, they've done it before and they likely would do it again. When WWE brought Matt Cardona, aka Zack Ryder, back into the fold, the idea was clearly that he would be used as an established name to put over talent. Cardona, to his credit, has done this rather well since re-signing, but now that he's torn his triceps, he's looking at up to a year being out of action. Does this mean that WWE is going to pull the plug? Well, not necessarily, yet TKO are known for making brutal business decisions in 2026, and it's really something we can't rule out. And number 1, Bayley. Bayley's WWE contract situation is a confusing mess right now. She was written off television in an angle with Lyra Valkyria, and a common consensus is that it will be the last time that Bayley is seen on WWE programming if she doesn't opt to re-sign with the company. It's also stated that if she does re-sign, then she will return to TV and continue her feud with her former tag partner. Bayley, as well as Mercedes Moné, have been actively teasing an AEW debut, and this has been teased so often that Bayley is said to rub certain people the wrong way backstage. A lot of fans are convinced that due to these endless teasers, this could mean that she could be leaving WWE, yet it's entirely possible that she's just doing this for leverage, which of course may end up backfiring if it's upsetting the wrong people backstage. Some fans are arguing that Bayley has achieved everything in WWE and it's now her best interest to explore new feuds and stories in AEW. This will definitely be something that Bayley is contemplating, as what is there left her to do in WWE outside of perhaps winning the mid-card titles in the women's division? Now, it's unlikely that Bayley is going to be lowballed when it comes to a new contract, as it's been reported via Dave Meltzer that the offer from both WWE and AEW is said to be substantial. WWE will no doubt want to prevent AEW from signing Bayley, so WWE matching or eclipsing AEW's offer is definitely likely here. Unlike most names on this list, the power is in the hands of Bayley. It'll be extremely interesting to see where she decides to go. Who do you think is leaving though? Let us know in the comments down below. I'll see you next time with some more wrestling content.